Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Greetings, my friends, and welcome. Great to have you here. Rush Limbaugh, your voice of hope and truth during times of trouble and turmoil and stress. This is the place that you need to be. Great to have you here. 3 hours of broadcast excellence straight ahead. And here's the telephone number if you want to call in, 800-282-2882. Email address, lrushbaugh@eibnet.us. Now, I want to say here at the start that I know the vast majority of you in this audience have at best a passing interest in the approaching Hurricane Irma. If you live anywhere west of Florida or Georgia or South Carolina, North Carolina, you probably don't care that much. I remember when I grew up in Missouri, the weather would tell us when hurricanes hit, but it was nothing that was ever going to affect us, and so there was not a direct emotional connection to it. We knew of it. We didn't get mad at it when the news was reported about it, but I understand that those of you who do not have an emotional connection, other than those of you with family in these states that I mentioned, I know you might be tempted. Come on, Rush, it's a hurricane. You can't stop it. Just deal with it and move on with the news. I don't know why Trump's selling out to the Democrats. And we're going to get to why is Trump selling out to the Democrats, if that's how you want to characterize it. But I want to spend the early moments here of the program on Hurricane Irma because, ladies and gentlemen, your beloved and respected host is being slimed and smeared with a fake news campaign out there that has been ongoing for 3 days, which, in the bottom line analysis, confirms pretty much everything I have said. The fact that in the midst of all that's going on here, so many people have to take time out from what they're doing to try to trash me. I'm just a guy on the radio. I'm not even a guy on TV. And yet, efforts are underway to once again, for I don't know, the 10th or 12th time in my career, to entirely trash, slime, smear, and destroy me over things that I did not say, over points that I did not make. This is occurring in places like the Washington Post, second day in a row there, the Associated Press, CNN, Headline News, some other cable networks and so forth. And we talked a little bit about this yesterday, about how some in the media are lying, just bold-faced lying about what I said 2 days ago about the approaching Hurricane Irma. Now, the irony being they accuse me of spreading fake news while they are still at it. They are spreading fake news about me. They are lying through their teeth about what I said. And it's not the first time. And I have a theory about this, folks. I think the reason that I'm able to get under their skin is that I am one of the few who bucks their conventional wisdom. And I do it effectively. I do it persuasively with intelligence guided by experience and logic. And it just, yesterday I told you they live in this safe cocoon that they have built for themselves, where everybody in the cocoon thinks alike, talks the same thing. They're uniform. Anything that's outside that cocoon that tries to get in causes anger and panic. And they react by lashing out with a need to destroy that which they think threatens what they're saying. So what I'm saying about this, or what I did say, to them constitutes a threat. Because otherwise, it wouldn't be any big deal. If I were this irrelevant, and if I didn't matter, and if I was this crazy, and I was this off the wall, they would ignore it, because they wouldn't have to point it out. Everybody would think so. But, of course, very few believe that. And the only people who believe those kind of things are those that have no experience listening to the program. Now, there's a quick way of dealing with this. There's a show, I guess a new show on Headline News that's hosted by someone named S.E. Cupp. And this subject came up on this show on Headline News hosted by S.E. Cupp. And guest after guest after guest repeated that Rush Limbaugh was putting people at risk. Rush Limbaugh is telling people to ignore the forecast. Rush Limbaugh is telling people to not drink water. Have you seen that one, Mr. Snerdley? They're out there saying that I'm telling people don't worry if you can't find water, just don't drink it. I mean, some of the things that they are saying, that 2 hit pieces in a row from the Washington Post today. Rush Limbaugh's Hurricane Survival Guide, stop buying water and don't listen to the news. Neither of those 2 things did I say. I never got close to saying either, and no reasonable, sane person ever would. So what did I say that has these people so discombobulated and upset? And I'm telling you, it all revolves around their politics. And I continually poke holes in their balloon about this, and they just can't handle it, and they go livid. All I do is identify what they're doing. They are the ones exaggerating. They are the ones using this destructive event, which is going to affect millions of people horribly. They are the ones using it to advance a political agenda, not me. And all I'm doing is pointing that out. And I'm simply explaining to people how it works. Everything has been politicized in this country, and when the left is behind that politicization, you have corruption. There's corruption everywhere in our politics, and it is epitomized during national disasters and emergencies because the left is always working on moving their agenda forward, climate change, radical environmentalism. And so the occasion of this hurricane is an exciting thing for them. And simply to say that, just that, causes them to lose their grounding and their common sense. And when they lash out, they lie. And they say, as Al Roker did, that what I'm suggesting is near criminal. What I'm telling people is near criminal. Here's a summary of what I said to anybody in the path of this hurricane. Take emotion out of the equation. I explained how severe weather events are opportunities for big ratings boosts in the media and explained how it happened. I explained how severe weather events impact retailers and how some retailers are smart enough to coordinate advertising with television stations. It happens. It doesn't mean it's bad. It happens. It helps to explain things, and that's all I do. Severe weather events are opportunities to advance political agendas, and they are. You can't miss all of the talk from Harvey on about climate change and people trying to persuade people that it's behind all this when it isn't. I explained there are several hurricane models. They all show numerous and differing possible tracks. I said I'm not a meteorologist. I said I don't come to you as an expert. I'm simply telling you I've lived in Florida 20 years. I've developed my own system for analyzing the data, and that I share it with you. Hurricane tracks can change quickly, unexpectedly. Talk to people. Hurricane Andrew, Category 5, went into Homestead, Florida. That was the last thing it was expected to do. There was no forecast that had it going to Homestead, Florida, and at the last minute, it jogged west and went into Homestead, Florida. Took everybody surprise. And these things can happen because all kinds of different atmospheric conditions are in play here, and a change in any one of them can change a forecast track. Not the fault of the forecasters. It's so complex. Climate, atmospherics, meteorology. It's so complex it can't be predicted with certitude other than 6 to 12 hours out. It is not an exact science. And I said, if you're panicked that you can't find bottled water, turn on the tap. I didn't tell anybody not to drink water. I said there's a thing in your kitchen called a sink, and above that is a thing called a faucet. And there's either one handle or two, one for hot, one for cold, or you turn the one handle in the right direction, bammo. Until the water gets shut off because of the hurricane, you've got water out the wazoo in your house. You can fill up your bathtub. You know what you could do? You could get Ziploc trash bags and partially fill them, like 75, 80% of the way, and put them in your freezer. Just load your freezer. There's any number of ways to come up with water if you can't find any bottles at a grocery store. That is all I said. But major American news outlets are out saying, I told people not to drink water. You don't need to buy water. It's not going to be an emergency. There's no dire consequences. It's all being made up by the forecasters because of global warming. I didn't say anything was made up. Now, back to this show on Headline News by somebody called S.E. Cupp. She had a roundtable discussion and 3 or 4 guests, and all of the guests echoed exactly what you hear in the drive-by media. They're not curious. They're not thinking. There was one guest who actually admitted to going back and listening to tapes of the program. His name is T. Beckett Adams, and he is he is a freelance, he's Washington Examiner commentary writer. That's a Washington newspaper, T. Beckett Adams. So after all of these different guests have reamed me unknowingly, ignorantly, and incorrectly, T. Beckett Adams said...
I think a lot of this is actually an unfair characterization of what he said. I went back and I listened to the tapes to hear what he said. And he didn't engage in conspiracy mongering. He actually started the segment by saying the hurricane is serious and it's dire. And he prefaced everything saying, I'm not a meteorologist. What he was saying is it wasn't a conspiracy theory so much as he was saying his take was extremely cynical. He said these things happen, they can be dire, and there are people who want to exploit them to advance whatever agenda they have. He never told anyone this isn't real, it's fake. With Al Roker and them suggesting to say it's not serious. He never said it wasn't serious. His overarching point is that some people want to build this stuff up so they can advance.
Okay, so that's T. Beckett Adams. The one guy that's been on TV talking about this who admits he went back, listened to the show, read the transcripts, and properly understands it. So after that, the next guy is somebody named John DeVore he's a freelance journalist. After hearing that, here is what happened next on this show.
Telling people what they want to hear is great business. That's what it is. Confirming fears, confirming biases, and having personalities like Rush who never have to take responsibility. Like, if there is someone in Florida that listened to Limbaugh, said that this...
A lot of people in Florida listen to Rush.
They do. That this hurricane is hyped up, I'm going to stay here, and God forbid something happened to them. Rush will never have to take responsibility for that. He doesn't have to.
He didn't even hear what T. Beckett Adams said because he didn't care. He goes on this show with a bigoted, prejudiced, biased attitude of me based on years and years probably of disinformation and fake news about me. He totally, this is idiocy. To have somebody explain, hey, I went back and listened. Let me tell you what he actually said. And then for this guy to come out and continue to mischaracterize and say that I am responsible for people not living this. I never said stay here. Never said no. It's up to you. I don't think I'm your parent. I think all of you have the ability to make up your own minds on these things. And I don't presume to believe that you don't. I'm not the one that treats my audience like children incapable of getting out of bed every day. It's these people that do that. I have paramount respect for you. I have so much respect, and I have no doubt of your intelligence, and that's why and how I deal with this and you every day on this program. It is they who treat people as incompetent, as incapable, and bordering on with contempt at times. Now, there's a bunch of more sound bites on this SE. I don't know. Maybe. But the point is, you had a roundtable discussion here with people presented as experts, and none of them had any idea what they were talking about. They were simply reacting to their own bias and prejudice about me. One guy, hey, that's not what he said. This is a big mischaracterization, and it didn't stop what was happening anyway on this show. So it's an instructive, teachable moment about how cable TV operates, about bias and prejudice in the news. But what it also does, folks, why do they care so much? What is the big deal? I'm not even on TV. If you're not on TV, you don't matter in American media, right? That's what I'm just a guy on the radio. And yet here we are in the midst of what the hell is Trump doing? People trying to figure out DACA, tax reform, immigration, and 2 hurricanes coming, and everybody's stopping to react to what I say. And in doing so, they have to lie about it and mischaracterize it. That tells me I'm hitting close to home. Why would Al Joker come up and say, for Rush Limbaugh to be telling people to ignore this is you're criminal? Al Joker doesn't even know what happened here. Probably yet hasn't taken the time to figure it out. But it must mean, folks, that my commentary on these people always hits close to home, because their reaction is typical of the left. Rather than debate or argue with what I said, just try to slime and smear me. That's how they do it. And they do anybody credible that is in opposition to them. Don't engage in the arena of ideas, because they can't destroy the credibility of whoever is saying things we don't want to hear. They're nothing more than adult versions of the snowflakes on college campus who use violence to shut down anybody who might inflate or penetrate their little cocoon of safety. Okay, so that's that. There's 10 total sound bites of me in the soundbite roster today, and not just about the hurricane. For a little guy on the radio. And we got all of it here, and Trump and the Republicans and the Democrats, and what does it all mean? You know you're in the right place. Hang in and be tough. We'll be back. I'll tell you this, folks. In a sane world, the media would be thanking me for trying to avert panic. I mean, when local police departments are called to grocery stores to guard a delivery of bottled water, which happened, I think, a couple days ago, over in West Palm Beach. Bottled water shipment arrived, and the local police were called by the grocery store to guard the truck while employees unloaded it. There was a 4-case per limit per family. Now, that's not necessary when everybody has water in their home. Why do you think people are afraid to turn on tap water? It's an interesting question, because there's a political answer to that too, sadly. But in a sane world, people would be thanking me for trying to avert panic. My observation that you don't need to fight each other over bottled water should have been heralded as a moment of sanity and reason in a world of chaos. Most homes have faucets. You can get unlimited water. All you need is the bottles. Fill up your bathtub if you don't have bottles, and then go get the bottles. As I say, get some large Ziploc bags and fill them like 75, 80% full to handle for the expansion that happens when you freeze it, and put them in the freezer. And you'll have that until you lose power. If you're going to stay, you'll have that until you lose power, and your water will be fresh and cold when you need it. You can fill a freezer with it. There's no reason to panic over water. Not right now. Not before the thing hits, which is all I said is being reported. I'm telling people not to drink water, not to worry about it. Nothing's happening. Hurricanes being overblown. Didn't say anything of the sort. In fact, the environmentalist wackos should even be applauding me. They hate plastic. Plastic bottles, they think, end up in landfill, and they come from petroleum, which they also hate. Now, here I'm urging people not to use plastic. The environmentalist wackos should be applauding me on the back, should be thanking me for my environmental concern. So, we'll take a break here at the bottom of the hour. That's done. The NFL starts tonight. Down here, nobody's even thinking about it, folks. Nobody. Having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. Rush Limbaugh here, 800-282-2882. And the NFL kicks off tonight in Foxborough, Massachusetts, the Kansas City Chiefs and the New England Patriots. And in all my life, I have never, I don't recall, maybe a strike, no, not even that. Folks, I don't recall a year where I can't find any interest in the hurricanes and everything else that's happening, at least down here where we live. But even me, before I was a golfer, I was a huge NFL fan. The Stick to the Issues crowd got mad at me talking about the NFL before they started getting mad at me talking about golf. That's why I came up with the environmentalist wacko football picks every Friday to calm the stick to the issues crowd. There's even a piece today at actually September 5th, I guess a couple days ago, Chicago Tribune by John Cass. Death of the NFL inevitable. His theory is because the middle class is abandoning the game. Not corporate sponsors, not the wealthy who buy skyboxes and stuff like that, but the middle class which supplies the players. His theory is that all of this talk, and now a movie about concussion and brain damage from simply playing football. He's done surveys, he's done little anecdotal research, and he's found that more and more middle-class families aren't letting their young boys play the game. And as that builds, there are going to be fewer and fewer players feeding the high school and college, junior college, and NFL football programs. It's going to take a while. I mean, it's not, but it is happening fast. And he thinks the NFL is missing this. He thinks the NFL is totally missing out on what's happening because, like so many institutions now that have become so large, they actually have it's not a disdain, but a lack of concern, interest, awareness of what's happening in Middle America. In fact, you could say that many people look at Middle America as the source of the problems. And after all, where are the people who like statues? Where are the people who have the stars and bars? What kind of people hate illegal immigration? That's all middle-class people. The Democrat Party has written them off. The Democrat Party has written off the white working-class voter. They hold them in contempt. And the middle class is still the largest and aggregately the wealthiest. I mean, not individually. Okay. We'll have more discussion on that as the season unfolds and other things. But there's so many things happening in the NFL that I don't look at it and I tell myself they can't be aware. They can't be aware of the impact of their own actions is having on it. This league is becoming more and more a league dominated by lawyers and suspensions, and it's constant. And more of the news is about suspensions and lawsuits and spousal abuse and all these other things the players are supposedly engaging in. And it's all chipping away at the aura, at the reputation, the image of the NFL, while I think they think they're upholding it. It's an amazing thing. It's a breathtaking thing to behold. And as I say, it'll remain a subject topic. Okay, let's get to, I can't say the number of people who reacted to me. It was about 2:30 yesterday. We had 30 minutes left in the program. We had the audio sound bites of Donald Trump speaking affectionately of Chuck and Nancy. How he enjoyed working with them. They came together on a deal to raise the debt limit, and Trump praised raising the debt limit and said it was always going to happen because it's so important. They did everything. They did a deal for everything except the DACA kids. That was left out of the deal. And I can't tell the number of people. When did Trump become a Democrat overnight? What just happened here? Trump's talking. And I was faced with a monumental task last night of trying to explain this. I can't tell you the number of people. Not mad at me. Those trying to figure out what was going on. And so I developed some explanations for this that I think have weight. It's not just one answer that explains this. There are many, and at the top of the list is something I've been trying to tell people about since Trump got into this. He's not ideological. I've tried to tell everybody he doesn't see Chuck Schumer the way his voters do. He just sees Chuck Schumer as another New Yorker who may be dumb, but he doesn't see him as a liberal. He sees him as an obstacle. He sees him as a guy that he may make a deal with, but he doesn't see him the way we do because he's not ideological. At the same time, how many of you, what really happened? What happened was that Trump kind of stuck it to Ryan and McConnell, didn't he? And I have to tell you, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that probably were very happy with that, but not happy with the way he did it. I mean, do you have to make a deal with Pelosi and Schumer in order to stick it to Ryan and McConnell? Well, if you do, he did it. Now then, there's two theories on what the reaction's going to be. One theory holds that this is the smartest thing Trump could have ever done. This is like calling up a rookie from the minor leagues who knows what to do on day one. It's taken Trump 6 months, but he's finally figured this all out. And he's had nothing but trouble from his own party. He's had nothing but obstruction, nothing but disrespect, nothing but a bunch of lying on Obamacare, repeal and replace, on tax reform, on whatever it is. The Republican leadership in the House and Senate has told Trump to go to and they haven't done for him. While all that's been going on, he has been beaten up by the media more than any person in my life, not just president. And Trump, I happen to know this, is a sensitive person. He's got a tough exterior, but nobody likes this. Nobody likes being beat up. He doesn't like having to go out there and make jokes about the fake media. He doesn't like this. The alternative is much better, being liked by him. The Republicans are afflicted by the same thing. But the Republicans, even they have not taken the abuse Trump has. Okay, so he cuts the deal with Pelosi and Schumer and calls them Nancy and Chuck. And he does this after Ivanka enters the room. And he does this pretty much in front of Mitch and Ryan. And they're left to go to a press conference. Okay, so the reaction. One theory holds that this is going to bring the Republican leadership in line. That Trump has brilliantly maneuvered things here by making a deal with these guys, that he sent the signal to Ryan and McConnell that if you don't get on board with me, you guys may be the majority over there, but you're not going to run diddly squat because I'm going to be doing deals with them. And this is going to bring McConnell and Ryan around and start working with Trump. What do you think of that theory, Mr.? You don't buy it. Well, we'll wait till the second theory. But as an adjunct to that, I have to tell you, I have to repeat this. If just at any time in the past 6 months or any time in the next 6, if for just 3 months Ryan and McConnell would work with Trump to advance his agenda, they would own everything for who knows how long. If they would have repealed and replaced Obamacare, if they would have then moved on to tax cuts and done real tax reform, and if they had built the wall, I don't care what Chuck and Nancy do. And I don't care what the Republicans do after. If those three things had serious action with an appearance of unity when the Republican Party on those issues, the Democrats wouldn't stand a prayer for 25 years. That's what's so frustrating about this to me. If the Republicans had simply worked with Trump, he won the election on the basis of specific issues. He had a mandate, but it's not theirs. The establishment mandate is whatever the donors demand, and the big donors run that roost, and that would be the Chamber of Commerce and lobbyists. And that's who Republicans and Democrats are going to answer to. But just think, folks, if just for 3 months it was all, if they could have just bitten the bullet for 3 months, or if they would bite the bullet for 3 months. Now, that brings us to a point about this debt deal that only for 3 months, and they got to be renewing it at Christmas time. So the Democrats are going to be bringing up the threat of a government shutdown again in December around Christmas time. And the Republicans are going to have to bite the bullet again, continually losing. The other theory, though, you disagree with the first one. This theory might appeal to you. You might think you're not going to like it, but I mean, it might appeal to you. The other theory is that privately, McConnell and Ryan are not bothered at all by this. That they absolutely love this getting done, no matter if it's a 3-month deal or a 1 month. They just want, when they're in the majority, they want the picture that Washington is working. Just the image out there that things are getting done. And if they don't have to do it, all the better. They're in the majority and Washington's working. Oh, hallelujah. Washington's working. It doesn't matter what's getting done. It doesn't matter who does what or who does. There isn't any gridlock. Trump and Congress are working together and things are getting done. And that is orgasmic. What do you think of that theory? I think that theory's that's too dangerously close to true for my comfort, but it may be. Welcome back, my friends. Rush Limbaugh serving humanity simply by showing up. I just checked my email, and I had, for me, a fascinating question. We're back to the hurricane here for just a moment. Bear with me. I have an email, actually a couple of these, and more than a couple in the last 12 hours. There are people like me who do more than just look at the Hurricane Center website and watch TV. They try to find as many websites with data on these models as they can. And these people have seen things. And the one thing, if you know which models the Hurricane Center pays attention to, and that differs from storm to storm, some people are right. Rush, to me, it looks like the models are moving further east out to the Atlantic Ocean, and yet the track is staying. Why aren't they moving it? I've had the staff asking me that question since yesterday. And here's the answer, folks, and it's without knowing it, I'm telling you, it's what it is. Once they published a track that includes Miami, they can't change it. Not this close. Yesterday, the official forecast included Miami and up to West Palm Beach and hugging the east coast of Florida. Once they do that, they can't move it off land unless the models just have this dramatic shift east, which would require the subtropical ridge, the southwestern edge of the subtropical ridge to move out of there. That's a high-pressure area over the Atlantic, which is what's keeping the hurricane from turning north now. Now, that thing is going to have to move out of there, and there isn't a single forecast that has it moving out of there. So, once they have it hitting land, they can't. They're committed for the rest of the storm. Miami, South Florida, major population area. The governor is on TV telling people to evacuate. You would not believe the preparation going on down here. All of the cellular companies have volunteered to put up Wi-Fi hotspots all over the state in case they lose cell coverage. The National Guard is out, the military, EMS. You would not believe it is a Herculean effort that Governor Rick Scott has put into place here. And for the Hurricane Center to move that track offshore right, they would never do it unless it's so obvious, and it's not going to be. So the models may show you that it's tracking or might track a little further east and not make landfall in Florida. It's still going to be close. Even if it doesn't make landfall in Florida, it's going to be close. But the eye of this storm is almost as wide as the state. It's mammoth out there. Another thing that happens, bear with me on this. I've seen this. I think the Hurricane Center, for safety purposes, over forecasts. For safety. Get people expecting the worst. And if you don't get the worst, then it's good news. The worst thing can happen is to under-forecast. If they under-forecast it, then don't worry, the winds are not going to get above 90, and they show up at 125. That doesn't work. So when they say Hurricane Category 4, maximum sustained winds 155 miles, there is a place where that is happening, but it's not very large. It's not the whole hurricane. But all of this is done on purpose because, and once it's committed to, once you reach the 3-day forecast range, which we're in now, 72 hours out, once you reach that, they're committed. So this track isn't going to change appreciably. Unless, as I say, there's a massive atmospheric shift. And if that happens, you'll see the hurricane start to move in ways not forecast anyway before Next forecast comes out. So just keep an eye on it. It's going to affect Florida no matter where it goes. And the effects in Florida, depending on where, are going to be damaging. It's the same thing with the amount of rainfall, the storm surge, the wind speeds. What happens is the hurricane, this is how this works again. The Hurricane Center forecasts, and they always forecast the max because it's the safest thing to do in terms of preparation and alerting people. It's always a sigh of relief if they're wrong on the high side. If they forecast a Cat 4, it hits as a Cat 2, that's a sigh of relief. If they forecast a Cat 2, it hits as a Cat 4, that's anger, that's problems. The media, however, you throw them into this mix, and now you have an entirely different universe to deal with. The media takes every extreme that is in a forecast such as this and runs with it as though it is gospel. And then they hype it and hype it and hype it. And then they tie it to climate change, and they tie it to whatever. And it's not the Hurricane Center doing that. That is the media. That's how they play snowstorms. It's how they play tornadoes, anything. That's just the way the media works. So the reality is going to be a midpoint between what the forecast is and the media hype. You watch. It'll be the case here, too. Hey, once again, the fastest 3 hours in media. First hour is already in the can. Now, look, there's a lot of you on hold. And I want to talk to every one of you. I hope you can hold on. I'll do my best to maneuver things into taking calls earlier in the next hour to get to all of you. In fact, a bunch of interesting stuff out there. Great way to do transition into different things to talk about. So hang on. We'll come right back. Be here before you know it. The views expressed by the host of this program documented to be almost always right 99.8% of the time. Happy to have you with us, 800-282-2882. If you want to be in the program, the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.us. From the Washington Post, Trump's deal with Democrats bewilders his biggest fans, House conservatives. The House's conservative rabble-rousers. Conservative rabble-rousers. These would be the gentle people like Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan. These are not rabble-rousers. Well, maybe they are. Anyway, this is the Freedom Caucus that they're talking about here. And they are supposedly bewildered by Trump happily making this deal on the debt limit and the continuing resolution and all of that with Chuck and Nancy. For months, as Trump delivered daily frustrations to Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell, House Republicans had little reason for doubt. But on Wednesday, Trump sent the hard right, a new message. Your enemy's enemy is not necessarily your friend. The president's quick embrace of a legislative strategery for a must-pass disaster relief bill proposed by Democrat leaders set the stage for a grand negotiation later this year that'll hand leverage to the minority and frustrate the majority's governing ambitions. It says here, if history is any guide, that likely includes any hopes conservatives had for ambitious spending cutbacks and a thorough recalibration of the federal government's size and scope. Now, look, folks, and then there's this. Excuse me, what paper? This is from also the Washington Post. Trump sides with Democrats on fiscal issues, throwing Republican plans into chaos. The Democrats haven't thrown Republicans' plans into chaos. The Republicans have done that. What Republican plans? Have any of you asked yourself a question? I've been asking myself, what is the reason we vote Republican? What do we do with these victories? I'm serious. I've asked the question before on this program, if this is what you get when you vote Republican, what's the point? The Republicans won the White House. The Republicans maintained control of the House and built on their margin, and they won the Senate, and they all did it on the backs of the Donald Trump campaign. Where is the evidence of it? The Republican Party is in power in Washington, but they're not. And you know why they're not? Because they don't use it. Where is the movement of the agenda? There isn't any. What is the point? You can't blame Trump in a sense. Well, but you could make the case that you could blame him. But if you look at this from his perspective, his party has been stymied. His party has been roadblocking him. The Democrats have too, but everybody knew they were going to do that. The Democrats are the opposition, and you expect the opposition to oppose you. But if I were Trump, I have to tell you, just in a human sense, I would be livid with these Republicans. They won the elections based on Trump's agenda, and they haven't done anything to implement it. It's almost as though they're afraid to. It's like they're afraid to use their power. With every succeeding election, the 2010 midterms, and then everything but the presidency in 2012, and the 2014 midterms, and then the election last year, the Republicans are winning and winning, and the Democrats are losing and losing, and yet you don't see any evidence of it. You don't see Republican ideas being implemented. And you may not even see Democrat ideas being stymied. But the point is, the Republicans, if they have an agenda, are not advancing it. They're not trying to implement it. They're not trying to use the power that these elections have given them, that they have sought, by the way. It's an entirely different story to the Democrats. The Democrats are trying to advance their agenda whether they win or lose. Am I right or am I wrong when I tell you that it always seems like the Democrats are on offense and the Republicans are on defense, no matter who wins elections? Okay, so you're Trump. You maybe didn't expect to win the presidency. Maybe you believed all that big data, too, that Hillary was going to win. Maybe you're as shocked as anybody else that you won, but you did. And what a feeling that must have been. What must it feel like to win an election for the presidency? That's got to be, I don't care what else you've done in your life. And I'm not talking about from the public popularity standpoint of it, just winning an election, what it means. I mean, that's really rarefied air, and it carries with it awesome responsibilities and awesome perks. And it's got potential for the best in life. It's got potential for disaster, but it's got to be a huge, huge deal. And then after you win the election, you see your buddies in the Republican Party thanking you and praising you and giving you credit for all of this and promising to get with you that there aren't any more excuses now. Reince Priebus said that on this program 5 days after the election. There aren't any more excuses for not moving the agenda forward. And then as you start moving the agenda, first thing you try, the travel ban, you see what happens there. You don't get much support from your own party. And then you get moving on Obamacare, repeal and replace. Maybe you should have done something else first, but you get moving on it, and you don't see any support. You see your own party's got a bunch of different factions in the House that are opposing you, supporting you, and maybe, you as Trump, you haven't yet fully informed yourself on the nuts and bolts of the bill, and you're using power of the office and whatever art of the deal persuasive tactics you have to get it done. But still, you've got opposition. And then everything that comes forward, everything comes up after that, nothing gets done, no money for the wall, no eagerness for the wall, just a bunch of talk. And while all this is going on, the press is trying to destroy you or your administration, get you thrown out of office, if not thrown in jail. And this goes on for 8 months. At some point, if you're Trump and you're a doer, you want to start getting things done. Remember, he's not ideological. So Trump's deal with Democrats bewilders his biggest fans, House conservatives. Maybe. Trump pulls off a cold Stone Cold Stunner. This is a fascinating take here in thehill.com. It's by Niall Strange. Maybe he pronounces it Neil. You never know what he's Brits and how they spell that name. Could be Neil, could be Niall. President Trump for once united Washington on Wednesday in shock. Republicans and Democrats alike were left scratching their heads after the president did a deal with Schumer and Pelosi over the express wishes of most senior members of his own party. Trump signed up to terms proposed by the Democrats on government funding, which would soon have run out, and the nation's debt ceiling, which would soon have been hit. Crucially, another funding measure and another increase in the debt ceiling will be required before the end of the year. That is a big problem for Ryan and McConnell, who wanted a longer-term deal. They wanted to kick the can all the way to November 2018, which is true. They did. They wanted a debt ceiling bill and a hurricane funding bill in the continuing resolution to go all the way through November of next year. That would cover every aspect of the re-election, the campaign efforts in next year. They just wanted to kick the can down the road and get it all done. Fine and dandy strategic. That wouldn't have accomplished anything. That wouldn't have moved anybody's agenda forward. Just another raising of the debt limit. I mean, the Republicans were going to do this too, but they didn't. Everybody thinks Republicans now have been dealt a dastardly blow by Trump because he now has given the Democrats all the leverage because we've got to go through this again right before Christmas. Right before Christmas, the media will once again be talking about the threat of a government shutdown if the debt limit isn't raised. And once again, Trump's going to have to make a deal with the Democrats who are not in power in Washington. This is the analysis. Now, this piece at The Hill basically says that Trump did this because he doesn't know what he's doing. That Trump is in over his head. Why did Trump do it? Writes Mr. Niall Stanage, or Stanage, heck, I don't know how I pronounce this. Why did Trump do it? People in his orbit say the president was demonstrating to GOP leaders they do not have the whip hand, and that if they repeatedly fail to move his agenda, that he's willing to look elsewhere. Yeah, mentioned that as a possibility yesterday. And Trump's anger at the Republican leadership, certainly understandable. But if Trump thinks that he's going to get anything but poison pills from the Democrats, he is once again sadly mistaken. So this guy is saying if Trump thinks he's made some new friends here with Chuck and Nancy, he's got another thing coming because they hate Trump and they think Trump's a buffoon and they don't think Trump even knows what he's doing. So even though Trump united Washington, even though Trump made it appear that Washington is working, he still doesn't get any credit. This is something that Trump had better take note of. Even if he makes deals with the Democrats, and even if those deals advance the Democrat agenda, Trump is not going to get the love of the media. They're not going to turn around on a dime and report that Trump is growing. They are way too invested in Trump is a boob, Trump is a pig, Trump is unqualified, Trump is unfit. They cannot come off of that, no matter what Trump does. Anything that results in the Democrat agenda being advanced because the Democrats work with Trump is going to be laid at the feet of Schumer and Pelosi. They are going to get the credit. And I'm going to cringe reading it, but I can tell you what it's going to be. Donald Trump, neophyte, outsider, unskilled and unknowing of the ways of Washington, is repeatedly being schooled and used by the Democrats' seasoned veterans of the Beltway who understand exactly how it works. No matter what, Trump isn't going to get any credit. He's not going to get any love. That's not how it's going to work. Ask the Republicans. They've been looking for the love for 30 years. They've been looking, and they've been joining Democrats on such things as amnesty, any number of things. John McCain turned the media into his base. They've been looking for love in all the wrong places for 30 years, and they're never going to get the love of the drive-bys either. And so this has happened. I think, I can understand Trump's frustration with the Republicans. I can understand Trump, man of action, wants to get things done, at least get something moving. I can also understand that Trump wants to throw the fear and the wrath into the Republicans. And look, if you guys don't shape up and join me, this is going to keep happening because I'm not going to sit here and be stymied every time we come up with something by you people. I'm just not going to let it happen. And they better listen to that because when it's true, I hate to keep repeating myself, Trump's not ideological. He doesn't see himself doing deals with the left. He doesn't see him. The great thing about Trump is, I should put it, the one thing about Trump is if we just back off and let him go, his natural tendencies happen to take him into areas the left doesn't like. Everybody thinks he's a New York Democrat, and he may have been, but he is not a New York liberal. A New York liberal wouldn't have done any of the things Trump has done so far in this deal yesterday. Anyway, let me take a break and come back and get started on the phones because I promised that. There's a lot of great people out there with things to say who've been waiting patiently, so we'll start when we get back. El Rushmore. A man, a legend, a way of life. And Jason in Dayton, Ohio, we start with you first. I'm glad you called, sir. How are you doing? What's up?
Good. How you doing, Rush?
Pretty good, sir. Pretty good. Thank you.
Yeah, man, call me crazy, but I just kind of had a different outlook on it. Him working with the Democrats kind of does a few things. I think it's actually pretty positive. Like, shows that he's going to get some stuff done with or without the the Republican Party, and at the same time, kind of shows.
Now, wait. I want to make sure I understand. You think he wants to show that he's going to get some stuff done with or without Republicans? Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was just clarifying. I'm having trouble hearing. I'm not arguing with you. I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying before I go on. Go on.
Yeah, and at the same time, it kind of debunks everything that the Democrats are saying about him if he's working with them.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Trump is able to show the Republicans he's going to get stuff done with or without them. And another thing is that if he works as he works with the Democrats and as the Democrats praise him, that it kind of debunks all this stuff people are saying about him.
Well, whether they praise him or not, that's irrelevant. I don't see that happening. But at the same time, it kind of does debunk everything they're saying.
With who?
Just the Democrats in general, the whole liberal left media.
Now, see, I understand this thinking. But let me ask you, Jason, if you don't mind my saying, you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but how old are you?
35.
35, perfect. And how long you been paying attention to politics and stuff?
I would say easily the past 4 years.
Okay. Excellent again. Keep on, don't change. You have an independent ability to analyze things on your own. And what I mean is you don't need to, copy what other people are saying in your own words. You have an ability to independently analyze. Keep that up. But I want to share with you something about your second point. And speaking bluntly, it doesn't work that way. And you know it yourself when you told me, well, no, the Democrats and the media aren't going to change. Right now, the lay of the land is that Trump's a pig, Trump's this, he's hated, he's despised, he's incompetent, he cheated, the Russians helped him win, Hillary should have won. The people that believe this are deranged. The people that believe this, Jason, are delusional. You cannot expect rational conclusions to occur to them because their positions that they hold now are the result of irrationality that you and I don't really understand. So what you're saying is you want people to see the truth about Trump like you do. You like him and you don't like all these other people. So you think Trump working with the Democrats will make a point to people that it will help dispel these insults and these criticisms of Trump, and it's not going to work that way. You're hoping that people will conclude on their own, hey, you know what? Trump's working with, maybe it's not true what they're saying about it. It doesn't work that way. I can use my own career and 30 years as evidence, or I can use Ronald Reagan, or I can use George W. Bush, or any Republican you want. It doesn't work that way. And therefore, any strategy of behavior or policy that's designed to change the minds of irrational critics is ill-conceived. Whatever, let's use Trump here. Whatever Trump's agenda is, just use it. Just spell it out. Just promote it. Just explain it. But don't try to use, I'll call it tricks. Don't try to do things that people have to conclude on their own to change their minds. It just doesn't work that way. Wish that it did. Use me in this stupid hurricane, the sliming, the smearing that I'm undergoing right now because of the lies and distortions the media and others on social media are repeating, things I've never said about the hurricane and panic and all this. The people engaging in this can have it explained to them to their face what I actually said, and it will not change the way they think and the way they're speaking. They're irrational to begin with. They have prejudice and bias to begin with. The same thing with Trump critics. The best thing to do here is to ignore the critics. Don't try to change their minds. Don't engage in behavior that's supposed to be enlightening to them. Just do the right thing with as much energy as you can. We'll take a brief break and back after this. Do not go away, folks. Let me repeat something here, folks. Two theories about the McConnell-Ryan reaction. Some people are hoping that the Republican leadership, congressional leadership, McConnell-Ryan reaction to Trump doing a deal with Democrats would be to wake them up, shape them up, and make them realize, oh, my God, this guy's serious. Okay, we got to help him with his agenda or we're going to be left out in the cold. Some people hope that's the reaction. I don't think that's going to be their reaction, folks. I think that they are, on balance, okay with it. I think they're perfectly fine with Trump doing a deal with the Democrats. I'm sure they're mad that they have to take multiple votes on the debt ceiling and all that because it exposes them more and it brings the government shutdown threat to the fore in 3 more months. But let's be honest about something. When it comes to policy, let's look at immigration. When it comes to immigration, McConnell and Ryan are closer to Pelosi and Schumer than they are Trump. Do you think Ryan and McConnell want a wall? You think Ryan and McConnell want to build a wall? You think Ryan and McConnell want DACA to be no way. Ryan and McConnell are much closer on this issue to Schumer, Chuck, and Nancy. And in that sense, I think they're sitting around. I think these guys actually, get a little tingle of thrill that Washington's working. Look, our president did a deal with the Democrats, and we have just shown that Washington can work and that governance can happen. And lo and behold, Ryan had a weekly press conference today, and he was cheering the bipartisanship. Even in the throes of all of these hurricanes and the damage and the potential damage, it was wonderful to see that deal. It's a wonderful example of bipartisanship. So I don't know about my theory number one, because I think inside the Beltway Republican leadership, their hearts just, they just start a flutter at the whole idea that, look, Ma, we're governing. Isn't it cool? We're getting things done. Oh, yeah, this is why we came. This is why we came. No, it's not their agenda, but that's not why they're there. What is the Republican agenda? They won. They've been winning elections since 2010. What is the agenda? Stop Trump is the agenda. But even before Trump, stopping Obama was supposedly the agenda. But stop the Tea Party. Stop the Tea Party. Stop the conservatives. Well, I don't know, but stop Rush. Maybe. I don't know. But here's another thing, too. If elected Republicans think that Trump doing a debt ceiling deal with the Democrats is going to drive voters back to Republicans, let me ask you this. I'll use Ryan and McConnell just to help people understand what I'm talking about. I don't mean them specifically, but Republican leadership, Ryan McConnell, do you think as Trump does a deal, they know that their voters are not happy with him, all right? They know this. They can read the polling data. They don't care. They're more concerned if the chamber's unhappy with them. The chamber's not. The chamber likes them, so they're not concerned with what their voters think. But to the extent that they are, if Trump doing a deal with the Democrats, do you think they might think, well, this is going to send these Republican voters right back to us? You think they're thinking that? Well, I hope they're not, because that's not how it's going to work. Voters might hate that Trump is working with Democrats on the debt ceiling and overall spending and DACA, but that doesn't mean that they're going to all of a sudden find comfort with Republicans who couldn't find a way to repeal Obamacare. The Republicans have a strategy, and it's basically passivity. You know, Ben Shapiro at the Daily Wire, that is his website, and he wrote a piece for the Conservative Review, and it is quite brilliant. Headline, if Republicans don't make a move, they deserve to lose. Republicans in power have an unfortunate tendency to conserve their political capital rather than spend it, invest it, which is unfortunate because political capital does not accrue when you save it. It's not like investing money where it hopefully grows. Political capital degrades. Political capital in this case is winning an election, controlling the House, having a majority in the Senate. That is political capital. And if you don't spend it, if you don't invest it, if you don't use your newfound power, it simply evaporates. It degrades. What's the point? It doesn't grow because nobody becomes afraid of you because you're not using your power. Democrats, on the other hand, understand that political capital must be used. But the Democrats understand something. Look at the Democrats on Obamacare. This is a great illustration. The Democrats made an investment in Obamacare that cost them the House and the Senate and the presidency. A lot of people think, boy, what a dumb move. Those stupid liberals, those simple-minded, tunnel-visioned liberals, look what they did. They passed Obamacare and they've lost the House and the Senate and the White House. Well, yeah, but to them it was worth it. You know why? What was Obamacare? Obamacare is eventually going to become single payer because the Republicans are not going to repeal it. The Democrats invested in Obamacare to the expense of losing the presidency in the House and the Senate. Their return on this is the creation of the belief in the minds of the public that only the government can fix things, only the government can run things, which is what the Democrats believe. So even when they lose the House, and even when they lose the Senate, and when they lose the presidency, their agenda gets advanced because they spend their political capital. That's the theory. They also wisely rolled the dice and believed the Republicans would not repeal it. because it's an entitlement, and entitlements never get repealed. So the Democrats, they rolled the dice. They were willing. They didn't want to lose they didn't, don't misunderstand. They weren't trying to lose the House and Senate or the White House, but they were willing to in exchange for this huge leap forward in their agenda. The Republicans simply don't do anything like this. The Republicans, whether they win or lose, are not trying to advance it. That's why Trump was the nominee, and that's why Trump is elected president. The Republican Party used to be the opposition to the Democrats, and it used to be the small government, small taxes, individual liberty party. That's what it was known for. Even before you began talking about conservatism, that's what the party was known for. It's been a long time. But now they aren't even known or thought of as being in favor of those things. And so they have this power. They have this political capital. They are not spending it. Same thing with DACA. Same thing. Obama implemented the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, knowing that a Republican president could get rid of it with the stroke of a pen. But he knew, because he can follow he knows that half the Republican Party agrees with him on amnesty anyway. He knew that the Republicans would not want to, with the stroke of a pen, get rid of DACA, because they wouldn't want to be responsible for packing up a bunch of kids and sending them home. So they did it anyway. And there's just two examples, Obamacare and DACA, where the liberal left advances its agenda and they're willing to lose elections to do it. That's spending their capital. The Republicans are a party of passivity and reactionaries. And if you look at it in this light, and you put everything else in the mix that Trump's had to deal with these past 6 months, making a deal with Pelosi and Schumer, and it's key to understand he's not an ideologue. He doesn't see them like you and I do. Fed up with no action, fed up being stymied by his own party, who's only in power because of him. And they won't work with him on his agenda. And as I say, if they just would for 3 months, none of this need be happening. None of it. If they'd have just gotten together on Obamacare, repeal and replace, get serious about tax reform, and start building a wall, 3 things, then I don't care what capital the Democrats had spent, it wouldn't have mattered. They would be out of power for the next generation. But none of that's happened, and none of that doesn't look like any of that's going to happen. And if you add to that the Republicans might be, pretty tickled pink here that Washington's working with this deal, Trump and Pelosi, Chuck and Nancy. Well, if this makes them satisfied, if this gives them a little tingle of excitement that Washington's working, look at us, Ma, we're governing, it's working, isn't it fun? Bipartisanship. Anyway, we'll take a break here, folks, and we'll come back and return to your calls. Gary in Phoenix, your turn. You're next here on the EIB Network. Hello, sir.
Hi, Rush. Thanks for taking the call.
Yes, sir.
I want to get right to it. I was one of the first people on the Trump train. As soon as he started talking about immigration, stopping amnesty, I was there. I've had enough of it. From the GOP's autopsy after running Mitt Romney Care and Johnny Amnesty, telling us we had to have amnesty or nobody'd get elected again from the GOP.
Right, I hear you.
I was on the train, firmly. I went to his first rally, the one he had in Phoenix. I've been to 4 since. I loved it. I don't care about what he did with this little 3-month thing. The Republicans are pushing Obama's agenda. The Democrats are pushing Obama's agenda. All that makes the difference is whose lobbyists get paid off, in my opinion.
Wait. Just want to make sure I understand. You're not upset Trump did the deal with Chuck and Nancy is what you're saying?
No, I would rather he did it with Republicans, but Republicans don't do what they say they're going to do anyway. All they do is do things to directly pay off the lobbyists pay them off.
Don't think the Democrats are not run by lobbyists either.
Oh, I know that, but at least they do what their voters want on occasion. Republicans tell us we're mean, nasty people.
Well, I know the
our opinion.
Republican voters would have you believe they're going to get a handle on the debt limit, and they're going to.
Yeah, they're not going to do anything.
Well,
we have too much history to see it.
Well, they wanted
a pumping Obama's agenda. But let me get to the one point. I've been on the Trump train for a long time.
All right.
I understand his foes in D.C. include the Republican Party. Okay, because the Republican Party doesn't work for the voters; they work for the lobbyists. Yes, Democrats do, and in your last segment, you included, the push for Obamacare and taking that risk. Republicans don't want to do it. It's not because they're afraid of being labeled as racist or the media don't like them. It's because the lobbyist bribes will dry up. Okay, that's, 100% what it is. There's no other excuse for lying to their voters year in and year out. But the one thing that will make me jump off the Trump train is any form of amnesty, including DACA, and no wall.
Yeah.
That will make me jump off the Trump train.
Okay. Well, then you have to be a little bit nervous about what Trump's saying about DACA. You have to be a little bit nervous about it.
I am. So, we've been Republicans for so long, and Ronald Reagan was the first person I ever voted for, lifelong Republican, although I did not vote for John McCain. Haven't voted for John McCain since the Keating Five. He's a dirtbag.
Plus, he got captured.
That's the Republicans want to create a Democrat voting majority so the lobbyists can have cheap labor and Americans can be out of work. And if Republicans want that voting majority, I'm more than happy to give it to them. If they're going to keep screwing me and the country to replace us with basically slave wagers to make their lobbyists happy, and to vote Democrat when the time comes. Look how good the Reagan amnesties worked out for us. Look at California.
I understand. But, while all this, you're talking about this, there on the ground, there are some vast improvements taking place. The number of illegals coming in the country is way down. So much so that summer jobs went to Americans and they got much higher wages for them this year. And your lobbyists you're talking about were not happy with this. But Trump hadn't done a thing on immigration yet except announce what he's going to do, and it's already curtailing the flow. It's not stopping it, but the numbers are way down. Consumer confidence way up. Manufacturing is up. Employment is up. Real jobs. I mean, even before any legislation has happened, there is a demonstrable, noted difference in the U.S. economy in both attitudinally and hard numbers on the ground. It just shows what's possible, what would be possible if there could be some unity here on legislation that would cut taxes and that would further inspire this kind of economic activity that's already begun to happen since Obama has left and Trump assumed office. But look, I know exactly what you're saying, that when he says lobbyists, it's another word for donors, but it's the same thing. Some people call it the Chamber of Commerce because they're one of the biggest Republican donors. So this guy is saying none of this debt ceiling deal doesn't matter. You know what people tell me? This debt ceiling, getting upset about that with these hurricanes? Come on, Rush. There's nobody was going to limit the debt ceiling with these hurricanes coming and the relief that we all know is going to be spent. So lifting the debt ceiling, nobody's going to get penalized for that. I appreciate the call. We'll take a brief timeout and be back after this. Man, I was going to go back to the phones here, but I just jumped at the clock. I looked at it there, and there isn't enough time. Things are going crazy here, folks, because of new rules and restrictions that they're announcing for us here at Palm Beach. And it's going to have an effect on tomorrow's program. So all this is happening while the program is happening. But we'll keep our focus. We do that better than anybody else. We got one more hour to go, and we'll get to it right after this. The views expressed by the host in this program documented to be almost always right. 99.8% of the time there's a reason for that. It's because we engage in a relentless and unstoppable pursuit of the truth, and we find it. And then we proclaim it. And that happens to drive people crazy. Happy to have you, folks. 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.us. Have we made a determination on tomorrow yet? Is that, or are we still? Okay, may as well go and announce this. I'm not going to get into details because of the security nature of things, but it turns out that we will not be able to do the program here tomorrow. That will be in the hands of Mark Stein tomorrow. We'll be on the air next week, folks, from Parts Unknown. So we'll be back on Monday. It's just that tomorrow is going to be problematic. Tomorrow it would be, I think, legally impossible for us to originate the program out of here. So, I had to cancel a bunch of stuff. I was going to go to a private movie screening this afternoon, and I had a bunch of stuff to do tonight, and now that's all blown to smithereens. But I had a feeling this was going to happen. Well, Vince Flynn's new movie, American Assassin, they've made a... It starts on September 15th. I can already tell you it's dynamite. American Assassin is just fabulous. And I was there... They were going to have a private screening for me. There's the big premiere in Minneapolis where Vince lived tomorrow that I can't make. So I was going to have the private one. I was going to zip to it right after the program today, but now that's blown to smithereens. And so I'm going to reschedule that for Parts Unknown, where I'm headed. But Vince passed away way, way, way too soon, and it was just beloved by everybody who knew him. His wife and kids are some of the finest people. His wife's name is Lisa. She's still so proud. See her frequently, not as often as we would like, but everybody here is just proud as they can be that one of Vince's numerous thriller novels has been turned into a movie. And it premieres on September the 15th. So, American Assassin is it. Now, let's see. This stuff we've been talking about, the Republicans and the Democrats and Trump doing the deal with Chuck and Nancy. I think it's important to retell. We just had a call from an original Trumpist. Been to 4 rallies in Phoenix. He's been on board since day one. And he says this deal that Trump did with the Democrats doesn't faze him at all. Doesn't bother him at all. He says there, in his mind, Trump does not have a partnership with the Republicans. And so it's silly to hold out hope for that. The raising of the debt limit didn't bother this guy at all. I asked him, what would bother you? What would cause you to begin to question your support for the Trumpster? And he said, immigration and the wall. And I said, you got to be a little nervous over what the Trumpster's saying about the DACA kids. And he admitted that he is. And this whole scenario is fraught with peril for Trump. And he's telling him, he said, if you're a DACA kid, you got nothing to worry about. For 6 months, you got nothing to worry about. The problem with this 6 months is, we talked about this yesterday. I understand the theory. The theory is that what Obama did is unconstitutional, and it is. And Obama said it was temporary, but it wasn't. The Democrats know what they're doing in this. They never intended this to be temporary. Obama intended DACA to be the first step in amnestizing all of the illegals. And the Democrats' theory, Obama's theory, was the Republicans would never really undo it. Just like they would never really repeal Obamacare. Obama's thinking on this was, it's an entitlement. Obamacare is a bunch of free stuff for people. The Republicans aren't going to take it away from them. And when it comes to DACA, Obama's theory was the Republicans, they may huff and puff, but at the end of the day, they are not going to kick a bunch of kids out of the country. That was Obama rolling the dice. So Trump had promised all during the campaign that one of the first things he was going to do was roll back Obama's deferred action for childhood arrivals because it was unconstitutional, and Obama knew it was. You know, we played these sound bites over and over of Obama telling supporters that he wasn't king. We are a land of laws, he said, and I just can't go out there and universally grant amnesty to people. I just can't do it. We have a constitution. And he did it anyway, starting with these kids, these unaccompanied minors that came in from Central America. So Trump simply said, I'm ending this, but I was going to be a 6-month period of time before my order is implemented. So Obama's DACA essentially stands for 6 months. Now, here is what I theorized is likely to happen. You realize the Republicans and Democrats both want comprehensive immigration reform, i.e. amnesty. I think it's entirely possible that what's going to happen is that the theory is, I should tell you this first, the conventional wisdom is that Congress can't act fast enough. There's already too much on their agenda, too much on the calendar in the next 6 months, such whatever it is, that they can't squeeze this in. There just isn't time. Congress doesn't move that fast. They can't move that fast. This is one of the things Trump wants to change, by the way. What do you mean you can't move that fast? You know, nobody in business thinks that way. You got a project, you go do it. What do you mean you can't move this fast? 6 months? You can't deal with this in 6 months? It's stupid. It's silly. But it is a convenient congressional excuse, and particularly in the Senate. Well, you know, we here in the Senate, primary purpose we serve is to slow things down. We lower the temperature of all these things so that action isn't taken in the heat of passion, the heat of emotional moments. We dial it back so that it's purely scholarship here that determines what we do. Right. So I wouldn't be surprised, however, since conventional wisdom is they can't act in 6 months. What if the Republicans and Democrats get together and they come up with a piece of legislation? Because what Trump's basically said is, it's up to you. What Obama did is unconstitutional. You have to write a law dealing with these people. And if you put together a right law, I'll sign it without any guidance. He didn't give them any guidance. So what happens if the Republicans and Democrats come up with a full-fledged piece of legislation that grants amnesty exactly as Obama's executive order did? And then they send that back up to Trump to sign. What does he do? They can deal from below the deck on this if they want. Do you realize the trouble they can cause for Trump on this? You're not seeing this? Okay, Trump delays the pulling of Obama's DACA order for 6 months. In that time, Congress is supposed to come up with a piece of legislation to fix it. What if Chuck and Nancy and Mitch and Paul get together and come up with a piece of legislation that grants amnesty to the exact same bunch of people, the kids? That, in other words, is legislation that does exactly what Obama's executive order does and then sends that up to Trump. Does Trump sign it? You think he does? You think Trump signs an amnesty bill for the kids? This guy that just called said that's it. He's off the Trump train if Trump signs amnesty for anybody. Now, you're saying, what if Trump negotiates? You're going to do this, then you better put money for the wall in there. Okay. What if they don't? What leverage does anybody have to put the wall in there? Well, Trump's, I'll veto it. Well, then you're going to be responsible for kids being kicked back home. That's how they're looking at it. I guarantee you. At least the kids being kicked out of the country and forced to go back to El Salvador and Guatemala doesn't hurt Trump. If they won't, okay, all right. It won't hurt it if he doesn't get the wall and he vetoes the bill, and if they're unable to override it and the kids get rounded up and put back on the freight trains, Well, we'd probably fly them back first class on Boeing 777s, but nevertheless, they go back to wherever the largest airplane they could land from these countries they came from. You don't think that would hurt Trump, and you don't think signing it would hurt Trump. Very interesting. He can't say that. He can't say these are your. He sent it back to him. Right. Well, the constitutional thing to do was to send it, but he could have just canceled it and said, "To heck with it. They're out. They're gone." He didn't do that. He canceled it in 6 months to give them time to deal with it legislatively. And I'm just telling you, they can come up. What if they don't stop at the kids? What if Chuck and Nancy and Mitch and Paul, and Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, what if they come up with a full-fledged, comprehensive immigration? I know we better not sign it. He can't sign it. This whole situation here is very fluid. Meanwhile, the debt limit's going to go up. There isn't going to be any action on repealing Obamacare. They are trying to get a push here on tax reform. Trump is trying to get that. And Ivanka, Ivanka is working with some of the tax think tank people to try to get this done. And here's Bannon out there saying Gary Cohn should be fired, drawn and quartered, quit, whatever. He says it in 60 Minutes. And then what's his name? Huckabee. What's Huckabee's? No, that's the daughter. What's his first? Having a mental block of his first name. Huckabee, the presidential candidate. Was it Mike Huckabee? He and his daughter went on The View yesterday. Did you know this? Why? Why do our people go on these shows and be insulted? Joy Behar, who's 84 now? Me? No, what she said, Joy Behar looked at Mike Huckabee, and she said, let's not pretend that Trump has said some horrible things about women. Let's not pretend. And, of course, Huckabee nodding and so forth, and the audience of these crazy left-wingers going nuts. And then she said, how can you have your daughter, how can you send your daughter to defend this man? Let's not pretend that he hasn't said horrible things about women. Now, why? And Huckabee had a good answer. He said, look, I don't look at it. This man gave my daughter one of the greatest opportunities. And then Sarah Sanders, she said, hey, look, you know what? He hits everybody hard. He doesn't show any favorites. But she didn't say, you're all wrong. He respects everybody in the White House. He respects me. She didn't say that. She said he hits everybody. Why even go on these shows? Why do you have to go there and be insulted by Joy Behar? What do you expect to get out of this? I don't understand it. Anyway, folks, I do want to get back to the phones because so many of you still have a lot you want to weigh in on. So take a break here. Be back soon. Stay with us. Back to the phones. As indicated, this is Walter in Lexington, South Carolina. Great to have you, sir. How are you doing?
Hail to thee, Rush.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that.
Rush, one thing, I'm in Lexington, South Carolina, and apparently this storm is going to do very similarly to Hurricane Hugo back in the 80s and cut a swath through the middle of our state, so we're bracing for that. But the reason I called primarily has to do with my daughter is a lieutenant in the United States Navy.
Oh, yes.
Currently on a mission in undisclosed area where they are kicking some significant butt. But anyway, I am sick and tired of the NFL allowing their venue to be violated with this anti-American venom. And I've just had it with professional football. I'm not going to pay any more attention to it ever again, as far as I'm concerned. I'm sick of the political correctness and all this. I just want to watch a stupid football game. And this sideshow. They're allowing it to happen.
I hear you.
The media can feed on it, and I'm done with it.
I hear you. You just want to watch football. You like football. You want the announcers and the media people to talk about football, the game, the players, the plays, the strategy. You don't want to hear about what some guy making $10 million a year thinks of the flag. You don't want to hear it. You don't want to see the flag.
South Carolina Gamecocks.
Well, when you say this venom, that this anti-American venom, what are you specifically referring to?
The people who take a knee during the national anthem and refuse to allow our country to be praised and glorified for the goodness that it represents to the whole world.
I hear you. And I'll tell you something. You're not alone. There was a story, and I don't. Let me see if I can find it. It happened in Cleveland. The Cleveland cops. I know I've got a stack. It's too big for me to go through. I'm going to try to construct this from memory. The Cleveland Browns at a preseason game earlier this year, some of the African-American players refused to stand for the anthem, or they made some gesture. Here it is. They made some gesture that was considered disrespectful, much like Kaepernick taking a knee and all that. The story here from Breitbart. Cleveland police and the EMTs, emergency medical technicians, are boycotting the season opening flag ceremonies after the Browns kneeled during the national anthem. As the Browns prepared to meet the New York Giants on Monday, August 21st, which this is an old story. The story itself is actually 6 days old. Nearly a dozen members of the Browns took a knee during the playing of the national anthem at First Energy Stadium, downtown Cleveland by the lake. That enraged many local fans, including a Cleveland's Veterans of Foreign Wars post, which announced a boycott of Browns games in response to the anthem protest. Jim Brown, famed Browns star, criticized the protest, telling young players, don't disrespect the flag. Don't do that. Be an activist or a player, but don't combine the two. However, the Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association and the ILA Local 1975, which represents the city's dispatchers, EMTs, and paramedics, have announced they will not participate in a flag ceremony the team had planned to perform for the season opener. The union president, Daniel Nemeth, said the union is refusing to participate in the planned ceremony because of the players' protest. Nemeth said, this hit home with me. I'm a veteran. I'm an 8-year veteran with the Marine Corps. So to disrespect the flag by taking a knee is not something I'm going to be part of. Police union President Steve Loomis agreed that the Browns' protest was too much to take. He says, I'm here at a national police convention. As soon as they hear that I'm from Cleveland, the first question, what about those Browns, those stinking Browns? So if the ownership of the Browns and the league are going to allow that kind of stuff to happen and then come to us and say, we want you to help with the flag, it's hypocritical. So they basically are saying, we're not going to participate in the flag ceremony. It's going to be disrespected. We respect the flag, and we're not going to do it. So in Cleveland, there is pushback on this. But as I mentioned earlier, too, there's a column from the Chicago Tribune by a reporter named John Cass, who is convinced that the NFL is over, that they don't know it, and it's not over for the reasons that you think. It's over because the middle class parents are deciding this game's too dangerous. There's too many concussions. I've seen the movie, and they're not letting their kids play football. So the feeder system is being affected. How are you? Half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. Rush Limbaugh, America's real anchorman. Susan in Klein, Texas. You're next. Great to have you. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Rush. I just called to tell you that you're right about the water, the hurricane. You're right about everything, Rush. We just survived Harvey and Ike before that. We lived here 30 years. And if you're going to quarter the market on something, it needs to be peanut butter, jelly, and bread, because you can, make your own water, as you say. And I pray that this thing takes a right, which they usually do. And I wish you would have told us where you think it's going to hit. But I study it too, and Harvey was different because it formed in the Gulf very quickly, and they were right on. We didn't lose power, but we had in our we were 200 miles from where it hit, and we had 32 inches of rain. So I'm kind of concerned that everybody's going to get on the highway, and that's where the water gets you.
Well, they are starting to enforce evacuations here, and they are also beginning to shut down access to the barrier islands at various points tomorrow. So they are going to flood the zone with people who evacuate. I mean, the lines of cars coming out of Key West for the last couple of days have been, and those are 2-lane roads in many cases, sometimes 4.
And they need to evacuate. The problem, and everybody kind of dissed our mayor, who's not my mayor because we live outside, but there's nowhere to go. You need to let the people that need to get out of the way get out of the way. Texas is different than Florida, obviously, but
well, the thing, evacuating to further north in Florida may not be enough if you're going to evacuate here, because this storm, even if it hugs the East Coast going up, the tropical storm force winds are going to reach across to Tampa, in St. Pete. And if it cuts the state in half, it's going to weaken as it goes up, as opposed to half of it staying over water. But there's no real good scenario here. Did you say you wish I would tell you what I think is going to happen?
Yes, sir.
You realize if I do that.
It's not gonna affect your rating, Rush. You're always right.
Oh no, I'm not. But not gonna affect my rating. But all it would take. Let's say that I tell you I think it's going to do X, and it doesn't do X. You think the left could go find some actor to say, I believe Rush Limbaugh. I stayed right here because Limbaugh said I had nothing to worry about, and now look, I've lost my home, I've lost my wife, I lost my Xbox, I don't have nothing. All because I listened to Rush Limbaugh. You think they'd have trouble finding somebody? They could write a script, they could hire an actor to go on TV and say that.
Okay, all right. But I told Mr. Snerdley, these are the order of people I trust. I trust the Lord God Almighty, my husband, Rush, and Trump.
Well, look, I appreciate that. And let me people might be thinking, gee whiz. But here's the thing. I learned this from my dad way back in the early days of this show. I know that you believe me. I want you to. I'm being honest with people here. I want to be believed. And I factor that into everything I say here. I learned long ago not to say things just to get a reaction out of people. I learned long ago, don't say what you don't believe just to make people mad. I haven't done it. I don't do it. I'm not constitutionally capable of doing it. Now, I do have thoughts on the hurricane, but look, at this point, it would not serve any purpose to say so. I could write my comments down and put them in a lockbox, and we'd go back after the hurricane and open the lockbox and read to you what I thought and see if it happened. But right now, all that matters is that the Hurricane Center can't move the track, no matter what the models do, because once the Hurricane Center published a mainland hit near Miami and up to West Palm Beach, they can't move that. They're committed to it. It's part of the way they warn. Even if they think that it's going to turn and be offshore east, they can't move that track in advance of that happening because they can't be sure. If they were to move that track offshore east, say tonight at 5 o'clock in 2 hours, and then sometime tomorrow, and it moves, and they're right, but then late Saturday night, it makes a jog left back over land, they would be in deep doo-doo because people believe them too. And they can't afford, now that they've invested and committed to a landfall in South Florida, they have to stick with that until the hurricane makes a move that is off that track. They can't make a move now because of the models. I mean, even if the models show it turning due east and making a beeline for Grand Bahama, they're going to have to wait till the actual hurricane makes that move before they can change their track. So if any of you in this, in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, if you're going to make sure you're at every update, 5 p.m., 11 p.m., 5 a.m., 11 a.m., be advised in the next couple updates or more, it isn't going to change appreciably from what it is now, unless the hurricane itself makes an unexpected jog, either left or right. There are models on either side of this track right now. There's a model that still takes this thing into northern Cuba, dipping down in order, coming out about Havana, and then straight up the middle of the state of Florida after impacting the Keys. That's the UK Met model. Now, it's way out there on the left or the west. And there's a bunch of other models to the east. So their track is pretty much in the middle of all this, and which, as I say, they're committed to it. So what I think it's going to do, it would not serve any purpose to say at this point. I'll take a break. We'll be back. Don't go away. Before we get out of here, I got the most incredible email today from Coco up at the website. He said, Rush and Catherine, this is a submission I plan on using for the featured ditto head in this week's Rush in a Hurry recap email that we send out every Friday afternoon. By the way, you should sign up for that. It's a recap of everything happened in the week. It's an HTML email that is one of the best recaps of any media program there is. Everything of note that happened here, it's in that email. And we include a featured ditto head every week. And this week's is a 9-year-old man, a young boy named Joshua, 9 years old, recovering from a heart transplant in a hospital in Texas. And he listens to this program, 9 years old, every day on the radio. We got a note from his father. And it says, my son wants to give you a shout-out, Mr. Limbaugh. He's 9 years old. He just went through a heart transplant at Texas Children's Hospital. He loves listening to your program on the radio. He'll be in the hospital for about a month to recover. He loves our country. He would hope that you would give him a shout-out. Thank you, Mr. Limbaugh, and God bless. And here's a picture of him in the hospital. Coco has this. So we are going to be not only the shout out here, but in our Rush in a Hurry email recap. So thank you, Stephen. I appreciate it. Stephen and Joshua's the son. This is stuff that just almost stops my heart. I mean, to tell you the truth here, to see these kinds of things. Mark Stein will be here tomorrow. We have to get out, folks. Back to wrap it up in a moment. Mark Stein will be here tomorrow because the authorities are not going to allow business to be conducted here anywhere on the island tomorrow. So, fear not, folks. We will be here on Monday. Well, we won't be here. Well, hopefully we will, actually, but we'll be on the radio Monday. See you then. Thank you.